Hello, I'm Alexandra Wenman and I'm here with the fabulous Rebecca Campbell, another fellow Aussie light worker chick, which I'm so honoured to have you here, Beck.
Oh, it's so good to be here.
Thank you for talking to me.
In London.
In sunny London today. It's actually hammering down with rain, which is great.
Very English weather.
Yes, very English weather. So I just wanted to talk to you about your kind of spiritual journey up until this point and what inspired you to sort of come out and shine, I suppose, in the way that you have.
Well, I had my first awakening when I was quite young, and so it all was like around about 13, 14, and overnight everything just kind of got turned up big time. And at that stage, there was no one in my life who could really relate to what was happening and all of that, and so that's where I went into a spiritual closet. Just because, really, I could feel how weird it actually was. All these things that I started being fascinated by. And it was weird because it was just different. That's all weird really is, different. But I think as we all age, we realise that actually it's the weirdness, it's what's unique about all of us that is special about us. And so the weirdness is actually the gift.
It's so true, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I ended up, I knew the concept of light worker when I was younger. I remember reading about it. Doreen Virtue's got a book called The Light Worker's Way, and it was like, oh my God, this explains everything which I've been feeling myself, and I was finally able to put words to what I knew deep within me. I ended up having a career in advertising where I went into what I call like the undercover light worker.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people do in media and those kind of industries. But yeah, then I moved over to London. I had all these like goals of, by the age of 30, X amount of money, X amount of job, blah, blah, blah. And all of them came to me, but it just increasingly felt like nothing. And yeah, and then it was just around that time my life ended up just crumbling literally around me.
And it sounds familiar.
Yeah, and I think it's so common, particularly around the Saturn returns age, like 28 to 30, that happens. But then also what's happening now, particularly, like so much stuff is moving that it's like anything inauthentic just can't survive anymore. And so I know so many people going through that, and
we're
constantly
just being pushed, aren't we, into our into our truth.
Yeah, well, that's it. And it's like it's about honoring what's falling away and what's rising, and realizing that actually, in order to live in a state of flow with the universe, we need to embrace our cyclic nature. So and this is hard. And I don't believe anyone, any teacher, any person has this mastered.
No. It's
like, it's easy to look at.
We get the concepts, I think. A lot of people get.
So that's getting it in your
logical
mind.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to look at teachers or whoever you want to look at who've got their life sorted and see it. And even when you feel like you've got your life sorted, right? So you've had so much go right in your life right now.
Yeah.
But that's not a finite state ever.
No.
So the moment that we try and use spirituality particularly to make ourselves immune to life, i.e. the highs and the lows, and the highs and the lows, the highs isn't good and the low isn't bad. It's all just is what it is.
That's the further you go into the light, isn't it? The more you cast your shadow in a way. Like, so you have to learn to love both those aspects.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's fine. Absolutely.
Cool. And so when you first started, because 14's quite young to have the awakening, isn't it? What was it? Was it just a feeling or a curiosity that came to you, or you were aware that there were kind of energies around you, or what sort of stuff?
I went to my first meditation class, which was at school. One of the PE teachers was just put it on, and I went in there, and I felt energy moving through my body, like from I now know it was my Shakti rising, which you may have heard, like Kundalini rising, that kind of thing. It was the very beginning of that, but held it down, because I remember going home and telling my mum, going, oh, makes me feel all weird and like it's like a wave crashing through me, but it feels great, but it feels, and she was like, what
are you talking about, child?
Yeah. And around the same time, I ended up, there was a couple of really, and I'm going to say the word weird because it was extraordinary, relationships that came into my life. Like a lot of, there were a couple of women who'd lost their children as who were teenagers similar age to me. And
That's right. I remember reading you about the lady that lost her daughter. Was that a drug thing?
Angela Wood. Yeah. And so I'd remember I'd read about, well, with Angela, I read about her daughter, and just it was it really affected me. And then the next day at school, I was telling my friend, and then she was literally at my school. Lots of those kind of things. And so it was like within a period of a couple of weeks, it was like everything just got turned up full ball. And so in a way I couldn't ignore it. And I remember I went to a like a Catholic high school, and so I used to pray to Mother Mary, who really is just Mother Divine, right? And I remember praying for like people I could talk to about this stuff, and then also just like I don't understand what's happening. And then that's where I found the spiritual bookstore where I used to like just spend all my time putting my hands in the crystals and all that. And yeah, I remember I just read all the books, and that's really where I started putting myself through, I guess, a Masters of Life. And I don't think I'll ever be finished on that one. No. So that was really where it all began. And, you know, like all parts of life, you know, while I was at university, I definitely kept it more hidden than I do now. But yeah, it's definitely remained constant. But what has changed in the past, like probably 7 years, is my devotional practice, where it's me basically like, it comes to a point where you completely surrender to it and say, okay, like I always knew that this was the path, but there was a part of me that was resisting it. And then it was just like, boom, okay, I'm all in now. And then, whew, all of a sudden the life tends to flow a lot easier. Yeah.
What do you find is the biggest thing that's kind of changed about you since you sort of stepped onto that path, since you let go and kind of let that path open up before you?
Oh, life's so much easier. Doesn't mean you don't go through difficult bits. You definitely do, but I feel held, and I feel like I don't have to work as hard. Like in my previous career, like I had a really successful career, but it was at extreme cost. Like, yeah, I just, it'd be the long hours and the slugging it out and fear-based and all of that. So I find as I lean into myself being held, the less effort I have to put in.
And do you feel that this is something that is kind of naturally starting to happen on the planet as the sort of divine feminine energy wakes up? Like more and more people are learning to work in this kind of fluid,
yeah, because what we're doing in allowing ourselves to be held by the mother is surrendering to our cyclic nature. And as women particularly, our bodies are connected to the, like, literally the moon, right? And so it's like you know, we go from the age of the Piscean age into the Aquarian age, or I call it the age of light, and it's really about surrendering to that mysterious force that causes the whole planet to spin, flowers to bloom, seasons to come, leaves to fall, all of that. And I know I can only talk about myself, but I know for me, I used to try and rely on my own strength and resist against that. So with that, it kind of comes back to what we were saying earlier, where it's like, what is falling away? Because autumn always comes.
Yeah.
But in order for spring to come, which is the bloom, which is the rising, which is the light, we got to face the autumn and the winter.
We've got to have the clear out as well, don't we? Yeah.
Absolutely. And so for me, also being from Australia, I've always, and I was born in spring, September, which is the other side of the world, but I'd always been a spring and summer girl.
You're September, baby. Me too. What date?
16.
Oh, 26. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Cool. So and also like on your latest book, it's much more geared towards the feminine and the feminine energy, isn't it? So what can we obviously Light is the New Black, which is genius title. Obviously, I love that title. Was very much you call it a love letter to a light worker, I believe. And it was so inspiring to kind of say to light workers, it's okay to be you. Come out the spiritual closet, let your light shine. Do what you need to do to make yourself happy, and the rest will fall into place. So, Rise, Sister, Rise. What's the sort of predominant message that you have coming through in that book?
So, one of the major themes is on embracing our cyclic nature and letting. And living constantly with that. So constantly knowing what's falling away and then what is rising and creating space for that and really allowing yourself to be held by that mysterious force. It also looks at a lot of like past life history stuff. So to do with the feminine and patriarchy and persecution and all of that. And also it's really an invitation to create, redefine the concept of sisterhood, because there's so much talk about sisterhood, and which I think is amazing, but you can't be best friends with everyone, and so it's like about healing that good girl, which is like, oh, I have to be nice to everyone.
Yes,
exactly.
I've been battling with that one.
versus it's actually spiritual to have your boundaries and say what's true, and to heal, I guess, the patriarchy and the persecution within you rather than projecting it onto another woman.
Yeah. Well, historically, hasn't it always been, the boys do sort of on the 3D level give each other a leg up, and with women there's always been this energy of competition.
Yeah, exactly, because the feminine's been denied. So, and I think that the worst persecution that's happening now is between women.
Yeah. Because
we're denying the darker sides of the feminine because for so long they've been seen as bad.
Yeah.
And shameful and not welcome.
Yeah.
I mean, you're wearing the ISIS stuff. You know all about that. But when you banish that in yourself, you're also banishing it in someone else.
Yeah.
And when you're banishing it in someone else, when it comes up in you, you're like, well, if it's in me, it's in them too.
Yeah.
So then there's all this mistrust. So it's about really healing the feminine line, as in, the mother line, really. So
yeah, totally. And it's time, and it kind of feels on the earth at the moment that there's an element to it that's conscious that we're going to do the work, especially if you're a light worker or if you have healing, that you're consciously bringing it up to look at it and heal it within yourself. But I think it's happening on a global scale, whether people want it to or not, isn't it? And that's where I think it's important that books like yours are there to support people, and the work that you do. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just one more question before we go: who are your female idols? Who are the women that you kind of look to, or that you see are the kind of the way showers that have kind of inspired you on your journey?
I would say the number one, my favorite is Maya Angelou. I just love her, everything about how she shared her voice and how she lived her life courageously, and not in a big way, but not in an egoic big way. Yeah, she's definitely my number one.
She's a cool one to have. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for speaking to me today. And have a brilliant day. And I wish you all the best with the book. Thank you.